Hi YouTube, this is Sex Talk. I'm Tracy Cox and today I'm going to talk about what to do if you're feeling dissatisfied with your relationship. How do you know if it's over or you're just stuck in a rut? Well, I'm going to tell you how to tell the difference. Today, it's not only acceptable to leave spouses or live-in lovers, you're viewed as a bit of a loser if you stay in a relationship that's not going amazingly well, which is just as unrealistic as the old formula, because no one is happy all of the time. All relationships go through bad patches and down stages. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's over or will never get better if you're more interested in polishing the chandelier than swinging from it. So if you've entered the so-so zone, your relationship's not bad enough to leave, but if this is the future they can stick it, it might well be an indication that you really aren't as compatible as you thought. But it could be you've both just simply settled into Dullsville. You do nothing but routine things together, you do fun things apart, and you rarely make love. Now, if this sounds horribly familiar, give each other a swift kick up the bum and instantly plan 6 fun things you can do together this week. Continue doing this for a month. Have a look at one of my previous sex talks called Make Over Your Sex Life in One Weekend and see how you go from there. Now, if you're still not enjoying each other's company 4 weeks later while lounging around that fabulous resort, yes, you're probably in trouble. Now, this sounds like an overly simple solution to the problem, but according to most of the couples counsellors I know, if the relationship can be saved, this saves it in 70% of cases. Make the relationship number one importance in your lives for a little while, if not permanently, instead of placing it behind family, friends, and career. Think about reasons other than the relationship that could be responsible for you feeling this way. Are you both under extreme pressure from work? What's your past relationship history? The reason why many of us hover in relationship limbo land is that we doubt our judgment. Perhaps previously you've left when others would have stayed, or stayed when others would have left. Now, if this does apply to you, my advice would be to do the opposite to what you usually do. If you're the sort of person to up and leave at the first hint of trouble, stay, at least for a while longer. You might be pleasantly surprised to discover relationships can recover from hiccups and actually grow stronger. If you have a tendency to drag relationships out until they're hanging by a thread, it's probably wise to get out. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty now and make a leave or stay checklist. Now, I'm going to ask you a series of questions to think about, so grab a pen and paper or your laptop and let's start making a list. Now, it really helps to see things written in black and white, although you might not want to be leaving this list lying around, so make sure it's private. Your memories are biased by what you're feeling at the moment. If you're feeling pessimistic about your partner, you'll put a negative slant on things. So say you met at school and married young. What you previously thought was romantic, you'll now see as impulsive and foolish. This memory bias means you'll colour the relationship history when repeating it to friends and family, which of course means the advice they'll dole out to you is inaccurate. They might tell you to pull the plug on what's essentially a good relationship, or if you've painted a rosy picture, stay in a bad one. So recognise that you're probably rewriting history and take this into account. Now, people often abandon relationships that could be saved with a bit of work. It's all part of our throwaway lifestyle. If something's broken, don't fix it, buy a new one instead. Now, how much energy and effort have you both already put into trying to make the relationship good? If the answer's hardly any or none at all, stay where you are. You haven't even tried yet. If you've spent months trying to fix things, but your partner's made no effort at all, even though they know that you're not happy, it's a completely different story. Ask yourself, if I stopped working at this, would it fall to bits? Try it for 2 weeks and find out. You both have to be prepared to work on the problem and come up with viable solutions. Think of your relationship like an old LP record. Even in good relationships, the needle won't move smoothly through the grooves. It'll skip now and then, and you'll need to give it a bit of a thump to stop it getting stuck in scratches. So if you're thinking of leaving, it probably feels a bit like the needle's been stuck in a groove, playing the same few notes over and over and over again forever. The question is, how long has it been stuck there? A few weeks, months, or years? Are you feeling mild irritation or intense annoyance? Now, if you've been together a long time and it's been so-so for about 3 months, I'd hang in there. Give the relationship the equivalent of a thump by planning a few weekends away together. Eat, drink, and be merry. Now, if you're both already working hard on the relationship and you felt disillusioned for more than a year, that's the time to consider moving on or therapy. Ask yourself this question: if I had to repeat the last 6 months of this relationship over and over until I died, would it make me happy? Now, if you've been together for years, it can seem like such a waste to throw it all in and start again. If that's the only reason you're staying, get out. Cut your losses and leave now so you're not wasting even more time. Are you asking yourself this question: what if I leave and don't find someone else? Now, again, if this is the only thing that's stopping you packing your bags, you're definitely hanging around for the wrong reasons. It's totally normal to ask yourself, will I find someone better eventually? It's not healthy to cling on to something that's over just because you can't bear the thought of watching telly alone. Get a flatmate or a cat. Have you outgrown the relationship? 2 years ago, you might have been compatible, but different life events sometimes force us in different directions. Ask yourself, are we such different people now? We really don't have anything in common. Or could we bridge the gap by talking more and letting each other in on our lives? Have you been influenced by other people? Now, if your girlfriends and your family have spent the last year constantly running down your lover, it's natural to start thinking they're right. Separate what you think from what others think you should do. Make 2 lists. The first list is, what do you have to gain by staying? Emotionally, your lover might make you feel secure and loved. He might be a great shoulder to cry on, give terrific advice, give great orgasms. Practically, they might pay half the mortgage or rent, give you a better lifestyle than what you'd have alone. So write down all the good things your lover brings to your life, then ask yourself, am I in it just for the whatever? The sex, something to do on the weekend? Be honest with your reasons for staying. The second list is, what do you have to gain by leaving? So we're going to repeat the exercise from the opposite perspective. Write down all the advantages of leaving. More time to spend on you, the chance to meet someone you're truly compatible with, the freedom to travel. You'd never have to sleep with them ever again. List all the pluses for flying the coop. Are you being honest with yourself? Now look at those 2 lists carefully. Do your reasons for wanting to stay or split seem like good reasons? Imagine meeting a stranger on a bus and telling them objectively why you left. Will they look at you and say, how sad, it sounded like you could have made it, or that's sad, but you've probably done the right thing? Do you need more information? You might decide you'd like to stay with your partner, but you want to travel solo for 6 months. It's worth asking rather than assuming they'd say no. Does your decision feel right? If you've decided to leave, do you feel a bit excited about the future? Like once the painful part of telling them it's over, you'll feel a massive relief. If you've decided to stay, do you feel a renewed commitment to your partner? Are you looking forward to the relationship becoming all you've wanted it to be? To wrap it up, I consider all of the following reasons to leave. If you only share 1 or 2 things in common, a hobby, sex, the dog. If you're doing all the work to solve the relationship's problems. If they're unwilling to change or compromise. If they don't think you have any problems, even though you've confessed you're not happy. If your partner treats you badly. If your partner takes you for granted, or you're so bored you can barely work up the enthusiasm to kiss them goodbye before leaving for work. If you love them but don't like them much. It sounds bizarre, but love alone isn't a reason to stay. You can love your partner on one level but still not be suited long term. If you've been with the person a long time, of course you still care desperately about them and you have lots of shared history and good times. But if your head tells you you're not only both moving in entirely different directions, but very happy about where you're headed, it's time to kiss each other tenderly and change the relationship to friendship. If this is something you've experienced or you want to share your experience, please leave a comment below. Hi YouTube, I'm Tracy Cox and welcome to Sex Talk. This is something that I get asked all the time. It's a really common problem. I love him, but I don't fancy him. So what can you do? Well, the fairy tale says we meet, fall in love and live happily ever after. It certainly didn't include being so bored in bed, it's much more fun masturbating than having sex with your partner. Can lust last the distance? Well, it's not designed to, but there are ways to trick the system, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. Now, if you had to choose between being absolutely and totally in love and having a deeply satisfying, pretty sensational sex life, what would you settle for? Now, that's a choice no one thinks they'll ever have to make, and sure as hell never wants it put in front of them. But I have to be honest, all the recent research, rather depressingly, tends to point this way. Don't jump off the cliff just yet. There are things you can do to circumvent this, but the first step does seem to be accepting that love and lust aren't quite the chummy bedfellows we thought they were. In fact, they're more bitter enemies. Here's why. When we fall in love with someone, we merge with the other person. This makes us feel all safe and snuggly and at peace with the world and our partner. Eroticism, though, requires separateness. What is desire if it's not unfulfilled anticipation? Desire surges to its most powerful peak when we first meet and want someone simply because we're unsure if our feelings are reciprocated. Once it turns out they're just as besotted as we are, the distance that was between you disappears. All the uncertainty, edginess, anxiety and jealousy that kept us in that feverish longing state is suddenly removed. Novelty, risk and separation all up the desire factor. Now, we want quite the opposite in love, so we actively seek out exactly what will destroy our sex lives. They are rubbish at lusting and loving simultaneously for partly biological reasons. The male brain releases high levels of vasopressin when deeply in love, and that in turn decreases the level of testosterone, which is of course the hormone responsible for sex drive. But it's not just that. Loving her means worrying about her well-being. The pursuit of pleasure requires us to be selfish little sods, become too absorbed with your partner's pleasure, and you forget about your own and lose desire completely. Now, when this happens, men often think they've fallen out of love, but quite the opposite has actually happened. They love her so much, the act of caring is too heavy a burden of responsibility. Desire and lust make you want to do filthy, sometimes quite degrading things to your partner. If she's sitting on a pedestal of love and respect, the two don't sit easily together. Sex without sin is like an egg without salt. A famous French director once said, "Take away the ability to sin and you take away desire." Female desire follows another equally disastrous path. Female desire is often linked to how we think he feels about us. In the beginning, when he wanted to slam us up against his fridge and sod dinner, we'd be like, fantastic, he must really fancy me, how hot am I? 6 months on, he'll do the same thing, and instead of our eyes becoming hooded with lust, they'll narrow with suspicion. Instead of thinking, great, we're liable to think, why? Is he having sex with me or having sex because he just feels like sex? Who's he thinking of when he's doing it? Is this leftover lust from eyeing off that new girl in the office? Then the whole sex is dirty thing kicks in, like he can't possibly be thinking about us as a potential mother of his children if he's suggesting doing that. And that's without even touching on the how we feel about our body thing. It wouldn't occur to men to think, Jesus, the old beer gut's looking a bit large today, better not shag the missus. But one unflattering reflection after a fleeting glance in the mirror on the way to the bedroom, and it's like somebody put a pin in the desire balloon for lots of women. Feeling unattractive, hormones, emotional history. Insecurity, not liking your partner much, genetics, these are just a few of the things that transpire to rob us of lust. Our baseline personality also plays a part, as does life experience. Sexual desire is a lust for life as well as sex. If you're boring, or the rest of your life is boring and uninspiring, why would you leap into bed with energy and enthusiasm, a wicked gleam in your eye and a cachet of sex toys clutched in your hands? You need to be excited by life to be excited by your partner. All relationships, well, apart from flingettes and one-night stands, move through 3 stages: lust and infatuation, romantic love and attachment. The 3rd stage is designed to be calmer, to provide us with a sense of stability so we can mate and procreate, which, let's face it, is sort of the point even if we like to forget it is. It's around this stage that what you thought was never going to happen to you does. You're, dear God, bored. So bored, in fact, masturbating is more fun than having sex with your partner. At least then you can watch some porn or play out that fantasy about seducing the next door neighbour. Suddenly you'll find yourself in love but not in lust, and that leaves you feeling, well, confused. This isn't right. This isn't what happens in the movies. Panicked, we either cheat, leave or settle for what we think is our lot, sexual despondency. The fact is, we're built to fall in love but not to stay that way. Only 3% of mammals are monogamous. The rest have serial sex or a lifetime of one-night stands. But you can trick Mother Nature. The thing is, I'm not really telling you anything you don't already know, simply explaining why it happens. We all know nearly half of all marriages end in divorce. This just gives a little insight as to why that might be. And if we know why, we can usually fix it, because knowledge is power. It might be common, but it's not inevitable that your relationship will follow this rather dire passion pattern. There are practical ways to fight back. Here's some solutions based on the most recent research on the topic. Stop trying to live up to society's idea of the ideal sex life and instead focus on what turns you and your partner on, and then muck about with that. Look and act as sexy as you can and drop the "you should love me no matter what" attitude. They probably still do love you when you're sprawled on the floor in front of the telly cutting your toenails. Whether they'll suddenly get turned on is quite another thing. Fantasize and stop stressing about it. Physically having sex with your partner and mentally having it with somebody else isn't wrong. It's what's going to stop you straying. Stop being sex robots. When you've been with somebody a long time, you can develop what's called a sexual shorthand. You know exactly what to do to get them off, and they do you. Because it works and it's easy, you then so rarely stray from that path, your bodies know how to do it all by themselves. Effective, yes, and when you're both tired or time deprived, appreciated. Exciting long term? Hell no. Change location. The most familiar touch in the world feels wanton and wicked when a hand sneaks under the tablecloth in a restaurant to snake its way up your thighs. A mild petting session spirals to sizzling hot if it's done in the back of a cab. Ditto the position you've done countless times when it's done on the bonnet of your car in the garage. Trade-offs don't always work with sex. Promise to do it their way one time and yours another, and you risk feeling resentful when it's not your turn, and you risk getting a lackluster sort of lukewarm response from them when it's yours. Compromise, but try to find middle ground, or at least blend turns into the same session. Perfect your technique and work out physically what you each need, but remember, desire starts in the brain. It's important to connect before and after sex as it is during it, and it's your brain that will steer you in sexy directions if you let it lead the way without judgment. Don't fall for the cliches. Lose the idea that single sex is raunchy and rampant and married sex is loving and affectionate. Personally, if either of you hear the words "let's make love" coming out of your mouth, I would go and wash it out with soap. Better still, fill it with gallons of wine and just get so roaringly drunk you scream, "For God's sake, take me," at the top of your lungs. Sex is about love, but it's also about lust. If you're already loving outside of bed, give lust a chance to shine in it. Lose the idea that it's disrespectful to do or suggest doing filthy things to your long-term partner. Granted, there's an art to suggesting it without offending, but don't let that put you off. So many people long to try naughty sex, but are so terrified of asking their partners, they end up indulging their wicked side with strangers and stay prudish and proper with their partners. No surprises for guessing this isn't a terribly good idea. Don't be scared to add outside stimulation. Now, if porn's not your thing, written erotica might be. It doesn't have to be 50 Shades style. Dip into a classic, D.H. Lawrence, or even give Nancy Friday a whirl for some women's real-life fantasies. Reading out bits from a sexy book to each other can be excruciatingly erotic. The Naughty Bits by Jack Merrigan is a collection of the steamiest, scandalous sex scenes from the world's best books. Lust can last, it just takes effort. Hopefully this has helped inspire you to give it your best.